This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. You are your greatest asset. It's time you started investing in that. Visit betterhelp.com/super and take care of you. Hey, brother! Guys, I could no doubt go on for literally days about some of the decisions that they chose to do in the Harry Potter movies, which deviated from the source material. Obviously, sometimes this has to happen for different constraints purposes, and sometimes they'll actually add something to the movies which are better than in the books.
Nice one, James!
I know not everybody agrees with me on that one, but I stand by it. On the other hand, though, and I know that we harp on it on this channel just so all the time, but it's because it needs to be done. Like, who let Ginny tie Harry's shoes? But then also, passed on blast-ended Scroots? Or also, where's Winky? Where's Hokey? Where's Hepzibah Smith? How about the Gaunt House? Okay, this is a very serious question. If you have only seen the movies, does the selection of Horcrux items seem just immensely random to you? Personally, I can't not see the movies through the lens of knowledge, which is having read the book, so I just don't know. But that being said, one thing that I have always been impressed with the Harry Potter movies is the casting. And also the props in a lot of instances. This video is not about that, but it's worth saying. But I think probably if you're watching this video, it means that at some point in time, you have wondered aloud to yourself whether or not they will ever remake the Harry Potter movies, or if they'll make like a TV show version of it, which can include a lot more details. Which I agree would be super cool, but I also have to say, good luck with the casting. Because Maggie Smith is Professor McGonagall. Fight me. Robbie Coltrane is Hagrid. Ivana Lynch is like 29 years old right now, but if you think for a second she couldn't play a 15-year-old Luna Lovegood, you're kidding yourself.
You're just as sane as I am.
Though I do love the idea of Daniel Radcliffe coming back as like Sirius Black or something. Or Snape. Age-appropriate Snape. That would be cool too. That said though, while the main characters in the series are extremely well cast, and I can't argue that I could have ever done better, this is a series that took place over an entire decade and includes 4 different directors. Which means that over that period of time, there are some odd or even dicey casting decisions that had been made. Some characters were replaced, others were deleted entirely, some others were just invented for apparently no reason, and some characters just got like an entire redesign despite the fact it was the same character the whole time. Do you think they're gonna realize that it's like the same character even though it's entirely different looking? Yeah, I think it'll be fine. Not worried at all. Classic executives, am I right? Either way, guys, today we are going to be counting down the top 10 weirdest casting calls in the Harry Potter movies. Hey, brother! Guys, before we dive on in, we need to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Stamps.com. Man, oh man, you guys, this one is super applicable for me today. I have recently gotten into like selling my friend's childhood Pokemon cards. Who else had this exact same binder? For me, it's been a super fun and rewarding process to go through and kind of just like dig through the nostalgia of my childhood and be able to provide that to others while also making some money for my friends. But right away, I realized that having to go to the post office to get a shipping label for every single package going out the door was going to be a problem. Not just a problem, if I had to do that, I would have stopped doing it. But with Stamps.com, I don't have to try to make it to the post office. I can ship at any time from anywhere from my computer. And whether it's letters or packages, you can do it for a lot less using Stamps.com because they have special rates with both USPS and UPS. All you need is a computer and a standard printer, and once you are done getting everything ready, you can either schedule a pickup or simply drop it off at the post office. So stop wasting time in line at the post office and go to Stamps.com instead. There is no risk, and when you use our promo code SuperCarlin, you get a 4-week free trial, free postage, and a digital scale. And there are no long-term commitments or contracts. Simply go to Stamps.com, click the microphone in the top right corner of the browser, and type in the code SuperCarlin. Again, that is going to be Stamps.com, look for the microphone and enter code SuperCarlin. Link is in the description down below. Okay, so right out of the gate, I am going to acknowledge the fact that a list of 10 probably doesn't adequately cover all of the unusual topics that we need to cover, so throughout this, I'm just gonna speckle in a few honorable mentions. These would be moments where like I either just kind of get it, or maybe it was like outside someone's control entirely. So to kick off, and I know you all know exactly where I'm going with this because it's just so obvious, Mafilda Hopkirk. Like, am I right, people? Like, first, we get her voice amazingly in 3 when Harry's being expelled from Hogwarts for using underage magic.
You are hereby expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
I mean, nailed it! And then we fast forward to Deathly Hallows, where this is the person that Hermione goes undercover into the Ministry has, and like, what, we're recasting her entirely? And on top of that, we're gonna just, dub this Mafalda Hopkirk's voice with Emma Watson's the whole time? Yeah. Honestly, I can't talk about this one for too long because the dubbing of voices under the Polyjuice Potion just drives me crazy. But, for real, number 10, Crabbe, as in Vincent, or probably more likely as in and Goyle. This young lad right here, the one that Ron turns into using Polyjuice Potion in Chamber of Secrets, where they dub his... Ben, you said you weren't gonna talk.
Bloody hell.
But it annoys me. Move on! Crabbe is kind of a funny one from the casting department because he just kind of like disappears. Which, to be fair, you really might not be that fussed over anyway, because the characters, even in the books, don't talk like at all. That is, of course, until Deathly Hallows, when Crabbe summons Fiend Fire and is credited with destroying a Horcrux. I'm glad we gave him that honor. Dobby died, but Crabbe killed a Horcrux. The point is, Crabbe and Goyle don't talk in the books at all until Deathly Hallows, except for when Harry and Ron turn into them in Chamber of Secrets. Are you two okay? Goyle's low rasp of a voice issued from his mouth. Yeah. Came the deep grunt of Crabbe from his right. See, Polyjuice changes your voice. You know what? It just seems like it was more work to do it the other way. The story with this character, though, in the films is kind of interesting because he's there all along, all the way up through Half-Blood Prince. And then abruptly drops off right before he's about to have his shining moment. A line. A real win if you are Goyle, by the way, who totally takes up the reins.
Come on, Draco. Don't be a brat. Do him.
I mean, wow. I almost didn't recognize you without Daniel Radcliffe's voice. This change up in a not so pivotal scene happened due to outside circumstances from the films with the actor of Crabbe. Jamie Waylett, who had played the character the entire time, was arrested due to his involvement in the London riots in 2011. The character's role was kind of replaced by Blaise Zabini, which you may not have noticed because he also only has one line. But all that said, let's move on to a character who has a tick more screen time. Tom, the barman. We first meet Tom when Hagrid brings Harry to the Leaky Cauldron for the first time, and he greets Harry.
Bless my soul. It's Harry Potter.
And this isn't a huge role, to be sure, but it is a huge moment for Harry the character. Because this is his first moment, like, truly in the wizarding world. And with that, Tom is the first person to recognize him as Harry Potter, the boy who lived. It's Harry's first taste of fame ever, and it's a pretty warm welcome into the wizarding world. Which is extremely fitting because Tom runs the Leaky Cauldron, which is quite literally the entrance to the wizarding world. And I bring up Tom because for some reason, the character design is changed a little bit going into Prisoner of Azkaban, where he's transformed into a kind of bumbling, slightly awkward character who doesn't really seem to be able to read the room and maybe understand that Harry's a little uncomfortable here. Here, Harry Potter, the boy who lived, let me offer you a handful of nuts that I just cracked with my bare hands. And to be absolutely crystal clear, I'm not saying that Jim Tavare, who plays this character, isn't doing an absolutely fantastic job. I'm just not entirely sure why they decided to change this character in so significantly. But moving on from character designs that were changed, let's talk about character roles that were changed with number 8, Scabior. To which you might be saying, who? To which I might be saying, exactly. This is the character who is typically number 2 to Fenrir Greyback and the Snatcher that gathers up Harry, Ron, Hermione and takes them to Malfoy Manor. And to be fair, this character is in the books and he is a Snatcher, but in the movies they really decided to go all in on him, despite the fact that Fenrir Greyback is literally in some of the same scenes. Even beyond that, this like random character goes on to sort of become like the face of Voldemort's followers. And what's weird about this is that Fenrir Greyback is in Half-Blood Prince. He's already been established as like a pretty significant threat. There are wanted posters for him. He kidnaps Ollivander. He destroys the Burrow. He's even there when Dumbledore dies. If anything, the movies make him even more dangerous than he was in the books. He's terrifying and recognizable and the one who did it in the books. And instead, we get like a Jack Sparrow knockoff. And it's not even like we don't see him again. He's literally in the scene where they capture Harry, Ron, and Hermione. The character who's supposed to do this thing is there. And later in part 2, we even see him kill Lavender Brown. This could have been like a great opportunity to remind us, the audience, just how dangerous he is. But whatever. Stand up, me hearties, yo-ho. Anyway, moving on, while we're talking about Lavender, let's talk about number 7, Lavender. I have a question. Is Lavender Brown like 2 separate colors? Or is the lavender describing what shade of brown we're dealing, like it's a lavendery brown? This one is definitely one of the more dicey items on the list, and I have a feeling you've probably heard it before. The controversy here is that Lavender was originally cast as a young black girl until Half-Blood Prince, where Lavender becomes a much more prominent character as Ron's love interest. And in doing so, in this much bigger role, she is recast as a white girl. And again, to be clear, this is nothing against Jessie Cave, who I actually think does play a very good, cloyingly sweet Lavender Brown. I don't even totally mind the recasting, but I think it's a lot more like one of our other honorable mentions, Cedric Diggory. We super briefly see Cedric as the opposing team seeker in the Quidditch match when Harry falls off of his broom in Prisoner. And of course, they didn't bring in Robert Pattinson here to kind of vaguely be in the background of like a blink and you miss it scene. And Cedric's not even referenced by name, and similarly, Lavender had not previously been referenced by name. So my concern isn't bringing a much bigger actress in to play the part, it's just recasting the race of the character. Further, in that Lavender Brown had actually already been recast once before, and both times before played by young black girls. But on the note of actor change-ups, let's talk about number 6, and I guess also 5, Colin Creevey.
Hi, Harry.
And Nigel? Colin, of course, makes his entrance in Chamber of Secrets, where he is the muggle-born wizard who is just infatuated with every single thing to do with the wizarding world. The character in general is very sweet, but also maybe a bit overzealous in terms of being obsessed with Harry due to his fame rather than just because he's Harry. He, of course, is also one of the Basilisk victims, and him and his younger brother Dennis go on to be rather significant supporters of Harry, being a member of the DA and fighting at the Battle of Hogwarts, where he does tragically die, and in my mind, as like the first year with the camera, and I can't bring myself to understand that Colin Creevey was a 6th year at that point. He's 17, but not in the movies, where we lose Colin, never get Dennis, and instead have Nigel, who feels like the same character.
Parcel for you, Mr. Weasley.
Oh, thank you, Nigel.
And my first thought, like when you're dealing with child actors like this, is there is the distinct possibility that the actor himself just went through a growth spurt and no longer properly embodied the Colin Creevey that we knew. And that very well may have been the case, but it also seems like there was a little bit of a debate as to whether or not it was better to have a canon character who is being distorted from the books versus just including a non-canon character, period, Nigel. But speaking of non-canonical, let's talk about number 4, Bem. Who, you might be saying? I don't know Bem. Yes, you do. He's this kid.
Not the grin, you idiot, the grim. Taking the form of a giant spectral dog. It's among the darkest omens in our world. It's an omen of death.
What the heck, Bem? What the heck? He just doesn't even stop there.
Black could be anywhere. It's like trying to catch smoke. Like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Hats off to E. Calcardi for putting the fear of death in everyone, myself included. But also, who is this random 6th Gryffindor boy in Harry's year? Seamus Dean, Harry, Ron, and Neville. There are 5, and a group shot of them in their dormitory in this movie. Again, the actor here is absolutely crushing it. I also feel like Dean could have said it. Or this is divination, Parvati, Lavender. They love that class! But now you're right, they had way too much screen time as it was. Also in the same category is a character named Kella. You know, this girl. Oh, you don't know. Well, that's probably because she's not in the books. Or have any speaking lines. Basically, in the movie, she delivers messages to Harry. But like, in the books, characters who are already cast deliver these messages to Harry. Where's Nigel when you need him? That is an unanswerable question, so I'm gonna move on to number 3. Tom! The barman again! No, I'm kidding. This time it's gonna be the lesser known Tom. Riddle. Not that Tom. In Chamber, we see the reanimated, young, charming, good-looking, dark-haired version of Tom Riddle from his time at Hogwarts. He is played by Christian Coulson, and in a lot of ways is almost exactly what I pictured in my mind when I pictured this character. But then when we go to Half-Blood Prince, we see a completely different actor playing this same young Tom Riddle who is swooning Slughorn with crystallized pineapple. You're quite right, it is my favorite. Now let me explain to you how to do the darkest magic I've ever heard of. Come on, Slughorn! This time the explanation is given, and it was because Christian Coulson was too old by the time Half-Blood Prince came around, which I find maybe slightly surprising because he was 24 when he was playing a 16-year-old in Chamber of Secrets and was only 29 during the year of Half-Blood Prince. Heck, now he's 42 years old. And look at this guy, I think he can still do it now. Did anyone in these movies not have like a massive glow up despite already being extremely attractive people? What about you, Bem? What do you look like now? What? Keep it up, Bem. Anyway, that's going to bring us to number 2 from Goblet of Fire, which is probably our wackiest one on the list. Every character's hair, except for Harry's, which I would say is actually exactly right for once. But seriously, is like every student at Hogwarts like a college student from the 70s all of a sudden? And look, I've seen the argument where it's like high schoolers go through this phase. Look, I went through this phase. Look at all that hair. But this is also a movie where we can make them look like what they're supposed to look like. To be honest with you, this isn't actually really that big of a deal. But while we're on it, let me also show you a picture of Jay from high school. Look at that. Hit the like button if you think he should bring it back. Anyway, guys, that is going to bring us to number 1 on our list, which pretty much includes almost a little bit of everything from everything else on this list, including a wild hair change, Flitwick. Okay, so Professor Flitwick, you know him, second best dueler at Hogwarts behind Snape, and also for teaching charms class, being head of Ravenclaw House, and looking like this for the first 2 movies. And I agree, it is like they took exactly what I was picturing out of my head and put it on screen. But then mysteriously, in Prisoner of Azkaban, he gets a complete makeover, and instead is this like non-canonical, Toad-inspired Hogwarts choir director? This one's actually kind of a crazy story, but when we first saw that choir director at the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, that wasn't Flitwick, that was literally just choir director. Basically, they didn't have enough for Flitwick to do in the 3rd movie, but they still wanted to include Warwick Davis, so they kind of invented this new character. And I guess they just didn't think anybody would recognize him, but we did. And if you're anything like me, I just assumed it was Flitwick. It's the same actor. He's at Hogwarts. He's in a leadership position. And apparently that is just what everyone thought. So the studio just kind of rolled with it and was like, hey, it was Flitwick. He loves choir.
I was hoping to find you in the 3 broomsticks.
No, emergency choir practice, I'm afraid, Horace.
And I know it might sound surprising, like how could you have thought nobody would recognize him? But I also only learned while researching this video that he also plays Grip Hook. Guy's got range. To be fair, this is probably one of those things that you guys did know, and I was just a little late getting to the party, so is there any punch left? Or... Guys, for my question of the day, what did you think about all of the recasting decisions? Is there anybody that you just absolutely loved? Was there someone that you were like, this person was so good, like Bam, that needs to just be in the books all of a sudden? Let me know in the towel section down below. But guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to leave a like if you haven't already and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you would like to see our list of the top 10 cringy moments from the Harry Potter movies, you can do so just over here. But otherwise, until next time, bye!